Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, desolate, sirs, peasants, vassals, minions, banker scum. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And let's go back to the U.S. and we'll talk more about central banks and banker scum. And I'm hoping that Americans are paying more attention to banker scum again. You know, there's a lot of things going on the international front, but it's important because when our backs are turned and there's all kinds of international things to worry about, and lots of trumped up fake scandals in the news. This is when the banker scum, sneak around in the shadows and do their dirty work. And so what we have now is a culmination, and this will be a nice follow up to my video about central banks and their global circle jerk, because now we have the Federal Reserve has just finished these newest round of bogus stress tests, and this is a huge culmination of what the banks have been after for 5, 6, 7 years now, since the financial collapse of 2007, 2008, and all the bailouts. So, of course, all these banks have had their dividend programs restricted, and until they can prove that they can weather the storm. So now they've spent these last 5, 6 years fighting every single attempt to restructure the financial system. They've resisted and lobbied against every single piece of legislation. They've completely gutted Dodd-Frank. They've pushed off most of the requirements that they haven't been able to get rid of yet. They pushed them off to another day. So they haven't really had to change anything. And that's why now not only do they have to not change anything, but of course they're bigger than ever. They're more dangerous than ever. They have more leverage than ever. They have more derivatives, and just an accident waiting to happen. And it doesn't matter that these stress tests say that 29 of the top 31 U.S. lenders got an okay, and two domestic branches of foreign banks, Deutsche Bank and Santander, didn't pass, and Bank of America got a warning. We've known they've been on shaky ground for all these years. But this doesn't mean anything to us. But this means everything to the handlers, the elites, and the bankers, all the ones that have been thriving during this economic collapse, while the middle class and the working class in Europe and America and nearly everywhere else is paying for it. So our economy is being destroyed in order to save the economy of the elites and fatten them up. And so we have an orgy on Wall Street today. In fact, apparently it was within a few minutes of the Federal Reserve announcing that these stress tests passed that all the banks not only lined up to pay out large dividends, but they're also getting back into the buyback frenzy. So here we have all of corporate America involved in this buyback frenzy, where they borrow money, they issue debt, and then they use that to buy their own stock back. And interestingly, an interesting part of this too is the fact that, of course, the market is completely overvalued right now. It's completely artificially blown up to where it is now, and yet these banks and all these corporations are buying these stocks at the height of the market. So that tells you how much these buybacks have a huge attraction for them. So they're not lending money, they're not invigorating the economy. They're just buying back their own stocks, driving up their own stock prices, fattening up their bonus programs, and fattening up their executive packages. And in fact, bonuses this year at Wall Street averaged $173,000. And that's the average. And so for all the employees on Wall Street, that's the average bonus. And that's in spite of the fact that a lot of these banks have had less than stellar performance recently and over the last few years, and yet they get these bonuses anyway. But I realize that their pay bonus structure is a little tricky, and a lot of their pay does come from their bonus. But that said, it's not like they've been suffering too much. They just managed to change the rules on how they pay bonuses. They've still been paying massive bonuses to all these people. They just figure out another way to put it on the books. So anyway, so let's get to some of these banks. We have Citigroup, which flunked the Fed stress test last year. It's going to boost its quarterly dividend to 25%. They're going to buy $7.8 billion back in stock. JP Morgan's going to raise their quarterly dividend to 10%, and they're going to buy back $6.4 billion in stock. Morgan Stanley will increase its dividend by 50% and buy back up to $3 billion in shares. Wells Fargo said it plans to raise its quarterly dividend 7%. And State Street said it plans to boost quarterly dividends to 13% and buy up to $1.8 billion of stock. And even with Bank of America only getting a slight pass, they're still going to do a buyback of $4 billion in stock. So here we go. It's just a disgusting process. So now we have all the banks essentially having an orgy today, payouts to all their shareholders who have had to take a lot fewer dividends over the last 5 years. So now they're going to push back to normal, where you're going to find 50 and 60% of these bank profits going out to these shareholders and the elites. So once again, the recovery will not be for the working class or the middle class. It's going to be for the same people that have been having all this wealth transferred to them anyway. And this whole process, once again, will keep juking the stock market, and these stock prices will continue to go up artificially, and this cycle will continue. So essentially, once again, the Federal Reserve is showing that it is not apolitical. Their arguments about not being audited are empty, because they are extremely political. Right now, they are serving the elite class, and they're serving the bankers. And this new round of bogus stress tests, with everyone passing, even though we're still having a castle built on sand as far as our financial system. They're still hugely leveraged and still have all these massive risks. And everyone's been talking about it. Everyone except for the Fed. But that's all right. They think everything's fixed now. And so they can let the banks completely go now. So now everything's almost back to normal for the banks. And it's too bad. They could have been making a lot more money these last 5 years if they hadn't been paying out hundreds of billions of dollars in fines for endless and repetitive criminal acts. But it all paid off now, because here's the big money shot today. Federal Reserve, all the banks passed the stress test, back to dividends and buyback city. Up, up, up goes the stock market. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.